Hello, and welcome to On Good Faith, a program sponsored by the Cape Cod Council of Churches. I am Jonathan Onquist, a pastor ordained in the Lutheran Catholic tradition, and it is and has been my pleasure to serve as your host for On Good Faith. We bring to you persons, issues, questions, ideas, events that take place and affect life here on Cape Cod, and especially seen through the eyes of a faith community. I'm going to read to you a little piece from a book that has been dear to my heart for many years, 5 Minutes for World Peace Forever, by Ruth Fischel. And she writes a little bit of note every day, and for day 24, these were her words. Today, I honor myself. I honor myself as a unique human being. I honor my similarities to and my differences from others. I honor all that I like and all that I do not like about myself. I honor all that I know and all that I have not yet discovered about myself. I even honor that which I hide from myself. I honor my past and all I have experienced in my past that has brought me to where I am today. A step closer to honoring all the sameness and differences in others. A step closer to peace. Peace, what we all search for. And in Holy Scripture we find several ways to go about finding peace. And I'm going to read something from the practical religion of the letter of James in our New Testament. In the 2nd chapter, we read, "My brothers and sisters, believing as you do in our Lord Jesus Christ, who reigns in glory, you must never show snobbery. For instance, 2 visitors may enter your place of worship, one a well-dressed man with gold rings, and the other a poor man in shabby clothes. Suppose you pay special attention to the well-dressed man and say to him, 'Please take this seat,' while to the poor man you say, 'You can stand, or you may sit here on the floor by my footstool.' Do you not see that you are inconsistent and judge by false standards? Listen, my friends, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he has promised to those who love him? And yet you have insulted the poor man. Moreover, are not the rich your oppressors? Is it not they who drag you into court and pour contempt on the honored name by which God has claimed you? If, however, you are observing the sovereign law laid down in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, that is excellent. But if you show snobbery, you are committing a sin, and you stand convicted by that law as transgressors. For if a man keeps the whole law apart from one single point, he is guilty of breaking all of it. For the one who said, 'Thou shalt not commit adultery,' said also, 'Thou shalt not commit murder.' You may not be an adulterer, but if you commit murder, you are a lawbreaker all the same. Always speak and act as persons who are to be judged under the law of freedom. In that judgment, there will be no mercy for the man who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment." Maybe a step closer to peace. In the effort here of Life on Cape Cod, we have one organization that works very hard to bring peace and all of us together in service to each other to make this a better place to live on the Cape and on the islands. Our guest today from the Cape Cod Council of Churches is the interim director, Edie Neesmith, and the president, the Reverend Chuck Wildman, the president of the Cape Cod Board of Directors. Both of you, welcome to On Good Faith. And we need to hear more about what the Cape Cod Council of Churches does here and on the islands. The table's yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Jonathan. It's appreciated. Cape Cod Council of Churches started in 1959 as a creation by congregations on the Cape who were concerned about ministry in our local community. First of all, the hospital chaplaincy, and then soon expanding to other ministries as well. Today there are 7 major ministries of the Cape Cod Council of Churches, which also covers the island communities. And these ministries are frontline ministries. They minister to people on the street, the homeless, people who have been incarcerated, people who need basic necessities of life through a baby center ministry where diapers are provided and other baby clothing and other essentials for mothers who find it very difficult to provide even these for their children. The Cape Cod Council of Churches is among those councils of churches remaining from that movement in the United States that has taken seriously going to the streets, as Jesus did, going on the highways and the byways of our lives, trying to find and minister to those whom society may have passed by for one reason or another.
Is one of the problems, I think, with the Cape and the Cape Cod Council of Churches in the islands, nobody knows, or not many people know, that the Council of Churches is behind a lot of the ministries that affect and positively affect our communities.
We have profited greatly from the strong dedication of our former director, Diane Casey Lee, and all of the volunteers who she worked with for 13 years. But they focused on those 7 ministries, come and go. There's sometimes 8, sometimes 6. They focused on those ministries and bringing those forward, but they did not mention the Cape Cod Council of Churches as being the organization that holds all these ministries in a kind of family of ministries. And so these days we're doing exactly what you suggest by your question. We are reminding people that each of the ministries is a ministry of the Cape Cod and the Islands Council of Churches, and the written materials and what we're saying about them. And so it's just very important that we see ourselves as supporting one another with those ministries and the council. And we're restructuring to make that happen in our fundraising and in all other things that we do as well to support one another.
And now in that restructuring, I think is very interesting now when Diane Casey Lee retired and looking for a new administrator.
Right.
Edie, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Edie Neesmith took that position and
as our interim executive director. Right.
And how is it going, Edie?
Well, what an honor to be here. It is truly a privilege to be working with the Cape Cod Council of Churches and to be learning about the amazing ministry that goes on there. I, as a long-time resident of Cape Cod and a long-time member of a Protestant congregation on the Cape, thought that I knew a bit about the Cape Cod Council of Churches, and what an education it has been to become, in fact, really involved with the organization and learn that we serve over 6,500 different individuals each year. They range across Cape Cod. They include some individuals from the islands as well. And the common factor is that these are our neighbors who are in need. And the Cape Cod Council of Churches takes very seriously the sense of serving God by serving others. And we do so in a variety of ways.
Going where the people are, going where the problems are, going where the difficulties are. And I read, I forget the theologian talked about, that's where you meet God.
Interesting.
You don't meet God waiting in the corner hoping something works for people. You go where the people have the problems, and there you meet God in Christ.
Right.
Tell us some examples of, you mentioned them, Chuck, the different ministries.
Well, I'll mention a couple. Maybe Edie would like to
Absolutely.
do more. I did mention a baby center, which has been probably at the moment the most well-known ministry of the council, although I'm not sure. Really helping families to meet basic needs of infants as they try to get their lives together. But there are other ministries too, ministries to people who've been formerly incarcerated, ministries to single women and single men. Edie, you can tell more about some of those things.
Sure.
And certainly to homelessness, which we're really beginning to to focus on even more in-depth than we have before.
Absolutely. Yes. If I can talk about the ministry that works with women who are incarcerated or who were formerly imprisoned, that's known as Bridge to Hope. And they have an amazing program of working as mentors with women who are currently in prison, helping them to define goals for their life, particularly once they come out of prison. Very often then it is that mentor who meets the woman as she leaves the prison gates and welcomes her back into the community and helps to facilitate a successful transition back into the community. That program includes as well a transitional house, an amazing cottage that is in Hyannis and can house women who are just coming out of prison to facilitate a successful transition.
How has that been received by the community?
I think the ministry that goes on there is so strong, so powerful, and so well run that I think the community has wrapped its loving arms around that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's to the credit of the people involved in the program and leading the program.
Absolutely, and God's grace.
Yep. And
Yeah.
Very good point,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
God's
Yeah.
grace.
Yeah.
Each of our 7 ministries has a director and often an assistant. These are all part-time people. They are not making a tremendous amount of income. They are doing this because of their dedication, their dedication and love for people, and their desire to do some good to truly help others. And I think that's one of the remarkable factors about the Council of Churches. It's very much an organization of dedicated volunteers and modestly paid professionals who have a great deal to offer.
Absolutely.
And the issue of homelessness you had spoken of
Yes.
too. That's one of the things that we're really focusing more on now, meaning the council.
Yes.
How is that focus being directed?
We have a very robust ministry to the homeless. It currently consists of 4 different aspects. The first is that we have a professional person hired as a street outreach worker. This individual works days, but also evening hours and Saturdays, and we are the only agency on the Cape and Islands that has a person who works those kinds of hours. So Mr. Lynch, Bob Lynch, our street outreach worker, works on the streets with the homeless, helping them get basic essential needs for survival. He may assist them in getting into detox. He may assist them with basic needs like socks, which are a critical need for the homeless. He may assist them with getting food or shelter for an evening. That's one aspect of our ministry for the homeless. The second aspect is our case management services, and I need to frankly brag a bit about the case management services that the Cape Cod Council of Churches offers. We are really dedicated to working with individuals who were formerly homeless, now placed into transitional housing or even permanent housing, and making sure that that is successful for that person. And we are proud to say that our success rate with successful housing that is sustained over time is 90%.
Fabulous.
It is fabulous.
It's fabulous.
It is fabulous, and it is something to be very proud of and to be grateful to those professionals who are making that kind of impact in our neighbors' lives who are in need of those kinds of services.
Those are exciting figures to hear, and I hope more people could be aware of those figures, because that's an impressive number to say.
Yes, it is.
Dealing with that community, because I imagine it is so difficult to reorient yourself and get back into a community.
Yes.
And then having the outreach worker that you have, what was his
Right.
name again?
Bob Lynch.
Bob, that's a really tough, challenging job.
Yes, it is.
And he is out on the street meeting people right where the needs are.
Night and day.
Night and day.
Night and day.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's such a gift and such a challenge to.
Yeah, thank you for that. It is a gift and it is a challenge. You know, when we talk about homelessness, we are talking about people whose lives have essentially fallen apart. And this can be this amazing confluence of mental illness, substance abuse, the lack of affordable housing on Cape Cod and the islands, it's just kind of a perfect storm that has happened, and it makes it very difficult for our neighbors in need. And we're talking about poverty here. These are people living lives in poverty. If I may, I'm going to continue on with the rest of our homeless ministries, because we have two other components to our services that we offer this population. So we have street outreach, we have case management, and then we have a volunteer mentor program. And this is when volunteers, who very often are congregants from our local congregations, will volunteer their time to mentor someone who is currently in transitional housing or permanent housing, but who was homeless at one time. So these are people who may offer rides, take people to doctor's appointments, take people to mental health appointments, all those kinds of things that help to sustain a person's life, as well as providing connection and community, a sense of community instead of isolation.
And the sense of community, I think, is such an important part that we talk about it a lot, but it's really an important foundation on which you can grow back into a successful and positive contributing life to a community.
Absolutely.
And that's just exciting stuff. Where else can all this stuff has to come from somewhere? Where's the money that supports the Council of Churches and all these efforts?
The 140 congregations that are members of the Council of Churches make contributions, first of all, to many of the specific ministries that we provide. We have feeding ministries, and we have other types of support services. This is a family of ministries to help the homeless and others, including drug addicted and so forth as well. But we also have a hope that the congregations will continue and increase their support for the core, the program budget of the council that makes Edie possible, and others, a very modest staff in the office coordinating all these things and managing all of the business items and the financial side as well with volunteers. And so it's the churches first of all, but we also are pleased to be supported by others in the community, individuals and some foundations and other funding sources who ask us for specific information about what we're doing, and sometimes say that's worthy of our support this year, or maybe for many years to come. And so your life is spent also talking and interpreting those programs and in talking with some of those folks.
Absolutely.
And we'll be doing more in the area of fundraising. We're so glad you asked that question. So there's much more to say about that moving forward in the community. We'll be hearing more as we move forward.
We need to hear that. We need to hear that. You had mentioned, when you talked about the start of the Council of Churches in '59, I think you said.
That's right.
And the start was dealing primarily, if I remember, with chaplaincy.
That's right.
At the Cape Cod Hospital.
That's our understanding as well.
That is still a vital ministry that is done through the Council of Churches. Is it not, with Cape Cod Healthcare? How does that whole picture play itself out?
That's correct. One of our 7 areas of ministry continues to be hospital chaplaincy, not only now at Cape Cod Hospital, but also at Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital. We have a part-time chaplain who serves as the Protestant chaplain at Cape Cod Hospital, and also someone who serves as a Protestant chaplain very part-time at Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital.
And then, but what about the other hospital in the Cape? Is that hospital touched by the council too?
Falmouth Hospital has a Protestant chaplain as well. That position, however, is sponsored not by the Cape Cod Council of Churches, but by a group in Falmouth called the Upper Cape Chaplaincy.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of, what I think is so important to realize, there are all kinds of agencies and organizations working really toward the same goal, peace and help for those in need. And we need to coordinate those efforts so that they aren't redundant. And I don't mean to overuse the word redundant, but recidivism is one of the things that is often criticized when we talk about dealing with, like, the homeless. Can you speak to that?
Well, again, I think two comments, if I may. And one is, you talk about this collection of human service agency that are all working to meet the needs of our neighbors on the Cape and Islands. we are proud to be a part of that community of services. And I, as one of my colleagues says, we play well with others. So the Cape Cod Council of Churches is really very proud to partner with agencies. For example, if I may, one of the services that we offer of case management and also volunteer mentoring to individuals who were formerly homeless but are now in transitional housing. The way that works, the housing is owned by Housing Assistance Corps. That housing is managed by Homeless Not Hopeless. And the case management is provided by Cape Cod Council of Churches.
Wonderful.
It is wonderful.
That's wonderful.
It is collaboration at its best.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Great.
If I may, I also want to emphasize that matter of collaboration for the support of the Council of Churches as well. And its member congregations are come from Catholic and Protestant tradition both. Mm-hmm. In fact, the Catholic diocese here provides additional chaplaincy as a part of the program we just mentioned and funded separately. And so that provides a ministry of a couple of chaplains to the Catholic population in the Cape Cod Hospital. And that's an example of the cooperation we have across lines within the Christian spectrum.
Tradition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And with the Christian spectrum, and there's also Jewish and Muslim, there's interfaith efforts there at the hospital too in the chaplaincy realm. It's quite a wonderful effort made by
It's a community effort, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, as we're coming close right now to Thanksgiving and Christmas, did you want to say something, Edie, especially about turkeys?
I would love to talk about turkeys, if you don't mind. We have a turkey problem, and it's not just Cape Cod, it's nationwide. Because of the avian flu, large quantities of turkeys are hard to come by through the Greater Boston Food Bank, and that has been our traditional source of large quantities of turkeys that we are then able to distribute to those in need both at Thanksgiving and Christmas. We do this through one of our ministries called the Hands of Hope Outreach Center, which is located in Harwich and includes both a food pantry and also emergency assistance services to prevent eviction and to prevent homelessness. So we're coming up on Thanksgiving and then shortly after Christmas, and typically we have distributed at Thanksgiving about 200 turkeys, about 150 at Christmas. So if anyone would like to help with this and make this possible for families in need, we would appreciate the donation of a very frozen turkey.
Very frozen
turkey to be taken directly to the Hands of Hope Outreach Center on November 16th, which is when families will be picking up their special food supplies for Thanksgiving.
On November 16th.
November 16th.
Take frozen turkeys to the address.
Hands of Hope Outreach Center, which is in Harwich. And if you will call the Council of Churches, we can provide. And in fact, if you look on the screen, I believe it has the phone number there for directions. Yeah. And then again at Christmas, the same thing will be happening. There will be on the 14th of December a distribution again. That date is very special because it includes as well the opportunity for families in need to collect toys and books. And I'm very excited about that this year. Historically, we've served over 700 children through the Hands of Hope Outreach Center at Christmas. And it's set up sort of as a boutique, so the parents can go in and select what's appropriate for their child. Yes, and this year we have a wonderful new collaborator in that venture with Titcomb's Bookshop out of East Sandwich, and they are very graciously offering us books to add to that selection for children, which is a really wonderful donation.
What's the date for that again?
That is also in December 14th. And again, if you contact the Hands of Hope Outreach Center, you can get more information about that.
Several wonderful ministries that you as the Council of Churches are providing for the Cape, and we often have said, and the islands. There is a connection there. Is it a vital connection with the islands, or?
Frankly, I think we'd like for it to be more.
Yeah.
And I think that is a goal for the future. We'd like to enhance our ministries to the homeless. We'd like to broaden further our outreach on the Cape and Island, on the islands.
On the islands.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anything you'd like to share, Chuck, before we conclude?
Just a word of information and thanks to the volunteers who work in this ministry, not only in the 7 specific ministries where they raise funds, as well as the whole council raising funds, but also on our board of directors, some talented people representing a broad spectrum of leaders in the community, working very hard for the Council of Churches Ministries as it goes into the future. We're very excited about the future and what we can do.
That excitement, I think, is catchy, and that excitement
you.
is what we need to project and let
Yes.
people know there are exciting things going on led by the Council of Churches. Thank you, Edie, for your time and talent, and Chuck, Pastor Chuck, thank you for all your time and talent too.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank
And it's wonderful to be able to work with you. And as we conclude today, I'd like to go back a little bit to that talk about peace from the 5 Minutes for World Peace. I think each of us alone are special, but as individuals, we need to be together, as the Council of Churches brings us together so that we can do ministry. Her day 25 in that book by Ruth Fischel, she says, "In this moment, I slow down enough to be with myself. In this moment, I slow down enough to connect with a power greater than myself. In this moment, I am deeply connected with many other people who have slowed down to make the same connection. Slowly, I let myself feel that connection. I am not alone." Neat words. None of us are alone. And the Cape Cod Council of Churches is making great efforts to bring us together as individuals and as communities of faith to touch wherever there is need. And I am proud to have our guest today and have you learn more about the Council of Churches and how we can be about bringing peace. Thank you for being with us today. I hope to see you again next time. Peace to you.